Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today, it's time for our monthly roundup with a lot of interesting things that happened recently. The European Union is stepping in, trying to stop the gaming industry from killing off even more titles. NX-Emu, a secure Nintendo Switch emulator, just published its first progress report. We're also seeing a brand new emulator built completely from scratch, called Hydra. And on the Xbox side of things, there's Xanite, an Xbox Classic and Xbox 360 emulator for Android. But is it actually functional yet? We also have PCSX2 ARM64 showing up as an alternative version of this emulator, compiled specifically for ARM64 processors. There's also Aorus, another PlayStation 2 emulator developed from the ground up, already booting into the startup screens of several games. I'll also cover PCSX2 version 2.4 with its latest updates, and address a question many have been asking: is Xbox's gaming division really dying? To wrap up, there's ShadPS4 news, with new major titles running in playable states. And a fun curiosity: a Mega Drive game that used to cost over $1,000 is now finally emulated for the first time. Plus, some piracy sites are getting shut down, and I'll share some updates on the current state of Nintendo Switch emulation. Let's kick things off with something important. Maybe one of your favorite games, something sitting in your digital library, could simply vanish one day. Imagine a character you've spent hundreds or even thousands of hours with, exploring, defeating bosses, suddenly just gone. Even if you don't play it anymore, that's still a weird feeling. I've had that happen to me with games I played as a kid, ones my dad introduced me to. We'd compete to see who could get further. Now some of those games simply don't work anymore or have disappeared completely. That's exactly why the Stop Killing Games movement was created. They explain that more and more games are being sold as if they're normal products, but they're programmed to become unusable as soon as developer support ends. It's basically planned obsolescence. It hurts players and makes preservation really difficult. Some well-known examples: The Crew, Anthem, and now partially Need for Speed Rivals. The Crew was removed from Uplay libraries even for people who bought it legally, like me. I pre-ordered it because I trusted the studio. I played it a lot until I got bored, but not everyone gets that chance. Today, all I have left are some screenshots. With Anthem, the game is going offline early next year. Since it depends entirely on servers, once they shut down, there's no way to access anything. As for Need for Speed Rivals, at least offline mode still works, but the fun part, those police versus racer multiplayer chases, is going away. The Stop Killing Games petition has already passed 1.36 million signatures, aiming for 1.4 million. For now, only EU citizens can sign, but that's already progress. And it's making a difference. For example, The Crew 2 will get an offline mode so it stays playable even after the servers are gone. This all ties into emulation. Keeping physical libraries and original consoles working is getting harder and harder. For instance, all my original Saturn discs just rotted. CD drives stopped working, and it's nearly impossible to repair them using alternative parts. So, if you want to keep playing on original consoles, EverDrives are your best bet. But in my view, emulators are the way to go. You can store your whole library on a single USB stick, play with whatever controller feels comfortable, wireless, without being stuck using those old Square NES or Master System controllers. It's much more practical. You can even play directly on your phone, wherever you are. If you're watching from Europe, have you signed the petition? Let me know in the comments. Now, about a future Switch emulator I mentioned here on the channel before. We've seen some small progress with NX-Emu. But let me be clear, this emulator isn't ready to replace your Yuzu Fork or Ryubing yet. Right now, it can only boot up a single homebrew app. According to the latest changelog, the developer is working on a graphical interface and automating the build process. They've created a new system for loading games. One big thing about this project is that it only supports decrypted games. This is likely meant to keep it away from legal trouble with Nintendo, since it doesn't use any console keys. Additionally, some Switch firmware modules have been implemented, apparently reusing parts already present in Yuzu. For those who want to try it out, automated builds are available for download, but like I said, don't expect much yet. It's a solo project, so naturally, development moves slowly. Speaking of new emulators, there's also Hydra. Unlike NX-Emu, Hydra is already capable of running some games. Development has been going on for about 5 months now, and it recently managed to boot Super Mario Odyssey. Like NX-Emu, it only supports decrypted games, which helps avoid legal issues with Nintendo since there's no need to bypass the console's TPM. For now, Hydra only works on macOS, but the developer has stated they plan to add support for other platforms in the future. At this stage, most of the games running on Hydra are 2D, and some are even rendered upside down, which is pretty common in early-stage emulators. Out of these two new projects, which one do you think looks more promising? Now moving on to a much more controversial project, let's talk about Xanite. This is an Android emulator claiming to run both original Xbox and Xbox 360 games directly on your device. I actually spoke with the developer a while back, when they were still trying to port Xemu to Android using Termux. The idea sounds cool, but in practice, it's really complicated because Termux creates several layers of emulation. In most cases, performance ends up way below what's acceptable. Back then, the only thing they showed was a very slow FMV from Doom 3, but that wasn't even the biggest issue. The real problem came when a screenshot leaked from a Telegram chat where the developers were supposedly discussing adding malware to users' devices. That caused major chaos in the community. This same developer had already been accused in the past of faking an RPCS3 Android build. So, as of now, the safest advice is, be very careful with this project. There is no functional version of Xenu or Xenia for Android. Especially considering that Xenia doesn't even have proper Vulkan support, it's still tied to DirectX 12, which doesn't work on Android. Until things become clearer, it's better to stay away from this emulator. Now on to PCSX2 for Android with x86 to ARM64 recompilation. This approach is still very early, but it stands out because it's based on the Android version of PCSX2 and uses a recompiler that translates x86 instructions directly into ARM64. That requires a lot more processing power, unlike NetherSX2, which was built from scratch focused on ARM64, making it lighter, more battery-friendly, and generally better performing on most phones. The idea behind this new build is more experimental, but there have been some surprises. In the project's Discord, Trixarian, the same developer from NetherSX2, compiled this build expecting it wouldn't run anything, but ended up surprised to see a few games working. 3 gameplay clips were shared by community members, giving us a good look at how things are shaping up. First, the on-screen controls are still poorly placed, the interface is super simple, and it looks like the emulator is always running in software mode with native resolution. That really limits performance. But for anyone wanting to follow development closely, the source code is available on GitHub, and compiled builds can also be downloaded. Moving on, let's talk about Aorus, another brand new project still in its early days but already catching attention. Aorus is a PS2 emulator developed for Windows, macOS, and Linux. According to the devs, it's the result of about 8 months of work. At this stage, it can already boot to the title screen in most games, but only a few 2D titles actually reach gameplay. There's still a lot missing. It doesn't have recompilers for the PS2's 2 main processors, no hardware recompiler, no Dev9 implementation, which is the network module, and it lacks support for peripherals like Gunkan, microphones, keyboards, and mouse. Still, if Aorus keeps evolving at a good pace, it could become a viable alternative in the future, maybe even surpassing projects like Play. Because while PCSX2 is extremely complete, it still has compatibility issues with certain niche games. Speaking of PCSX2, it recently hit stable version 2.4. If you've been following the nightly builds, we're already at 2.5, but 2.4 is the latest stable official release. The dev team mentioned that many of the big names involved with the project have stepped away since version 2.2, but those who stayed kept working hard to deliver this new release. The focus for 2.4 is more about polish than major changes. One thing that caught my eye was support for some really unique peripherals that worked natively on the PS2 but aren't widely known. For example, train-specific controllers, a motion tracking device, not like Kinect though. This one sat on the floor with elastic bands and was used in fighting or golf games. They also added support for Joy-Con and Nikon controllers, which were unique racing game controllers, quite different from the usual ones. Now there's also support for Konami's microphone, a device called Zip100. Basically a disc reader, though honestly, I'm not sure what it was for. There's also support for something called Picture Paradise, which apparently lets you upload images to the console, maybe to print them, who knows. And lastly, the iToy, the famous PS2 webcam, now supports audio as well. They've also improved both the speed and update rate of the software blending used in the emulator, along with some tweaks to debugging functions, which, honestly, won't make much difference for regular users. But if you like digging into advanced settings, it's a cool extra. Another interesting detail: now you can choose the save file compression method. You can even disable compression altogether. But as the PCSX2 team jokingly points out, you'd probably need a 40 terabytes NAS to handle that. The smaller the save file, the longer it takes to create or load. So, it's always that balance between space and speed. They also added a feature called RT and RT. If you've never heard of it, that's what happens in local co-op games where each player sees a different part of the screen. Before, the emulator didn't really know how to handle that and would end up displaying separate images that didn't merge correctly. Now, with this fix, PCSX2 recognizes those cases, detects which section the game wants to render, and puts everything in its proper place. That fix applies to a wide range of games, like split-screen games like Jak X, combat racing, games that used to need hacks, such as Ghost in the Shell, standalone complex games where certain effects now display properly, like Drakengard, and games that only worked well with software rendering, such as Hitman Contracts. Another thing that got an upgrade is the real-time clock (RTC). Previously, PCSX2 would pull the date and time directly from your PC, which could cause issues, especially in TAS scenarios or in games like Metal Gear Solid 3. If the system clock was set before the game's official release date, the game would just freeze. Now you can manually set a custom date and time for each game in the settings. This is especially useful for triggering in-game date-based events or for more precise speedruns. One note, for it to work correctly, the BIOS needs to be set to GMT0 with daylight saving time enabled. And just like on real hardware, it only supports dates between January 1st, 2000 and December 31st, 2099. Another major improvement was dubbed HDR optimization. And no, it has nothing to do with HDR colors. It's about how the PlayStation 2 handles textures. Thanks to this optimization, there have been some serious performance gains, up to 47% improvement using an RX 6600, with internal resolution multiplied by 6, running Sly Cooper 2. And in Big Mother Truckers, with the same setup, the boost reached around 162%. Who says emulating old games can't get faster when it's in the hands of the right people? They also gave some love to the DirectX 11 API. For a long time, it was kind of neglected, overshadowed by Vulkan and even OpenGL. Now it's gotten some attention, including the addition of a shader cache that brought about a 5% performance gain in certain cases. It's not huge, but if DirectX 11 is all you've got access to, it definitely helps. One long-standing issue they tackled was the ghosting effect that showed up in many games when increasing internal resolution. Over 100 games have now been updated to fix this, including classics like Ace Combat 4, the Sly Cooper Trilogy, God of War 2, and Shadow of the Colossus. They've been improving this since version 2.0, but this time, the number of affected games has grown quite a bit. The emulator has also been updated to SDL3. For those unfamiliar, SDL mainly handles controller and audio APIs in PCSX2. This new version brings full compatibility with DualShock 3 on Linux and makes the emulator's code more future-proof for related improvements. And beyond all these changes, there have been tons of smaller tweaks and improvements. Overall, I always recommend using the nightly build. Right now, it's already at version 2.5. As soon as the official changelog for the new release drops, I'll bring all the details here for you. Now, changing topics a bit, it looks like Xbox's gaming division is going through a really rough time, maybe even slowly shutting down. And this isn't just speculation. Laura Fryer, one of the founding members of the Xbox team, brought this up recently. What really stirred things up even more were the latest waves of layoffs. According to a summary from GameBishio, here's what's been happening in order. Microsoft confirmed a new round of layoffs affecting around 9,000 employees. The Next Perfect Dark game, which had been in development for years, was cancelled, and the Initiative studio shut down before ever releasing its first title. Rumors suggest the Perfect Dark gameplay shown last year was fake. Rare was hit as well. The Everwild project was cancelled after over 10 years in development. Greg Mayles, the creator of Banjo-Kazooie, is reportedly leaving Rare after more than 35 years. He directed Sea of Thieves and was leading Everwild before its cancellation. Another cancelled project was a new MMORPG from ZeniMax Online, which was never officially announced. Following that, Matt Firer, president of ZeniMax Online since 2007, announced he's leaving the studio. Turn 10 Studios, the team behind Forza Motorsport, was one of the hardest hit, losing about 50% of its staff. Other affected studios even include those working on Call of Duty, like Raven Software and Sledgehammer Games. Despite all this, Microsoft claims it still has around 40 projects in development. And they also clarified that, contrary to some rumors, CEO Phil Spencer isn't planning to retire anytime soon. Out of all these updates, what hit me the hardest was the situation with Rare. For those unfamiliar, Rare is a legendary studio. They created classics like the Donkey Kong Country trilogy on Super Nintendo, 007 GoldenEye, Banjo-Kazooie. After parting ways with Nintendo, they kind of faded into the background, working on smaller projects, except for Sea of Thieves and the new Killer Instinct, which got mixed reviews. Second on my list of concerns is Turn 10. Everyone knows Turn 10 from Forza Motorsport, right? But the latest game in the franchise had plenty of issues at launch, and even now, some things still haven't been fixed. With so many layoffs, it's likely some of Turn 10's team will join the Forza Horizon team, which is doing much better right now, even selling over 2 million units on PlayStation 5. Even though Xbox keeps saying that launching games directly on Game Pass is still more profitable than selling them as full-price titles, it's clear things are getting tricky. We'll just have to wait and see what happens next. Now, moving on to ShadPS4. In the latest version, more games have become playable, while others at least reach the main menu. The big highlight this time is DriveLub. But here's the thing, getting it to run is still a bit of a gamble. Sometimes it works, sometimes it even starts a race, but then it locks up right after with the GPU maxed out at 100%, showing just 2 FPS. Another game that's showing some progress is the Shadow of the Colossus remake. It's not fully playable yet, there are a lot of missing objects on screen, but at least it's something. And to wrap up this part, Uncharted 3 can now reach the main menu as well. Now let me tell you about a game that had never been seen on PC before, Paprium. Unfortunately, I can't show gameplay footage here because the developer has been striking down every video that talks about it. For those who don't know, Paprium was released on the Mega Drive in a really limited way, only through a crowdfunding campaign. It came on a special cartridge with a custom chip meant specifically to prevent it from being copied or emulated. And they weren't kidding, the cartridge was so locked down that it wouldn't even work on EverDrives. A lot of people even forgot they'd backed it, since it took over 2 years to be delivered. Today, Paprium is one of the most expensive Mega Drive games out there, going for up to $1,000 on auction sites. There was even a second crowdfunding campaign to release a PC version, but again, nothing was delivered. Now, though, the game has finally been dumped. And it's the full game. I'd say it's probably a solid 7 out of 10 at best. The game comes with MP3 music, kind of like a Sega CD title. To run it, you need a specific RetroArch core, replacing the default one, but it's pretty simple to set up. Now changing the subject again, piracy websites, especially those hosting Nintendo Switch games, have started getting shut down. The first major one was NSW2U, which was probably the best known site. It had ROM downloads, updates in all formats, torrent links, it made things really easy. But the site also offered games for other platforms like PC and PlayStation consoles. This isn't exactly new, the site had already switched domains several times because of these issues. And honestly, a lot of people had already stopped using it because the link shorteners and ads were getting out of control. Every page you opened hit you with a different pop-up ad. If you want to buy original games while saving a lot, check out Instant Gaming, the digital store that sells games for various platforms, such as PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch. Get games of all genres with discounts of up to 95%. You'll also find a variety of gift cards and credits for other services. You can pay for your order through your credit card on a website with a 4.7 rating on Trustpilot. You're buying games directly from Instant Gaming, not from other retailers. If you encounter any issues, Instant Gaming offers 24/7 support. And this month, Instant Gaming is offering a special discount on Wuchang, with a price at least $10 cheaper than on Steam, making it the lowest price ever for the game. What are you waiting for to save? Links in the description. Now, talking a bit about the current state of Nintendo Switch emulation. But before that, if you like this kind of more complete video, covering all the news at once, leave a like to help the channel. And if this is your first time here, subscribe so you don't miss the upcoming videos, which come out every week. So, a lot of people have been asking me why I haven't talked much about Switch emulation lately, and the answer is simple, there's not much new. The scene is kinda stuck, some controversies happened, some devs disappeared, and many forks haven't had updates in months. Starting with Kenji-NX and Ryubing. For Kenji-NX, many say that Keaton, who leads the project, simply vanished. The last update was in May, and nothing since. Ryubing, considered the most promising, was updated about 2 weeks ago, so I'd say it's still on an acceptable pace. Some say the dev isn't replying, but knowing his history, it's more likely he's just focused on other stuff and delaying updates a bit. Now, talking about the Yuzu Forks, things get even more complicated. And to close this month's big recap, let's talk a bit about Eden, Sudachi, and also Citron. In the past days, Eden has been hit by several accusations from a former developer. He personally sent me all the details, but honestly, I don't want to dive into that here to avoid more drama for the channel. Among the issues, all roles in their Discord server were released, causing chaos. But it's worth noting the server was quickly recovered by the team, with no data lost. Git was also affected, but again, nothing was lost. According to this ex-dev, the intent was simply to erase all emulator progress. There are also accusations of improper donations and other serious claims that can only be confirmed if proven. About Eden's current state, development is stuck at version 0.2, with only a backup development update released. It's been nearly 3 months without a new public version. The dev said version 0.3 will be the biggest update yet, but so far, the only thing that surfaced was a changelog related to Sudachi, mentioning an improvement on firmware 19 that could fix audio in Zelda, Echoes of the Wisdom. You might wonder, what does Sudachi have to do with Eden? According to Pikachu, he himself worked on that improvement, or maybe worked together with Jared. I got a bit confused there, but that's what I was told. About Eden's server, just to be clear, from what I saw and the ex-dev later confirmed, the project did not intentionally destroy their own server as a stunt, like some other projects have done. If it really was planned, I admit I was fooled too, but honestly, I don't think that's the case. When Eden actually releases a new version, I plan to test it on the channel and show you if there really are improvements in compatibility or performance. Speaking of Sudachi, its next update is called Sudachi Reborn. The changelog confirms only the audio improvement, parental control, and some user profile-related features. So far, no mention of compatibility or performance gains beyond that. Now about Citron. Recently I rejoined their server, was warmly welcomed, and they removed mandatory verification and any DRM from the emulator right away. I talked with devs and others from the project, and they even shared a test version with me. I ran some preliminary tests and helped with a specific request. One new thing is that the emulator interface is being completely redesigned. Now you can display your games side by side, similar to what PCSX2 or DuckStation do, for example. Another change is the window system, now tab-based, making navigation easier. They're also implementing an auto-update system, like Ryubing and other emulators already have. And finally, maybe the biggest news, lighting improvements for Unreal Engine 4 games. There's already a screenshot circulating showing Hogwarts Legacy running with fixed lighting. I haven't tested it yet to confirm if it really fixes the game, but that's the info for now. After Eden's server issues, many people migrated to Citron or at least joined out of curiosity. And, as always, once Citron releases a new public version, I'll test it and bring the results here, to see if performance improved or new games got added to compatibility. Remember, all links to projects already released are gathered in a single link on Patreon, available free for you all. It's just to keep things organized, you don't have to pay anything. So that's it, folks. Those were the updates this month. A lot can still happen, so stay tuned to the channel for any news. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you in the next video.